What's up YouTube, I'm Mike. Today I'm back with another bodybuilding video. This one is probably going to be highly controversial. For those of you who've been following my channel, you know that I have gone through hell and high water over the last couple of weeks dealing with my estrogen. I started a mint cycle that seems to have been behaving rather badly in my system, and all evidence continues to point to the fact that I crashed my estrogen into the toilet harder than ever before. I have still not gotten my test results back from Quest Diagnostics. We are now 5 days post blood draw. When things like this happen to me, when I go through these experiences where it seems like the entire universe is conspiring to cause me as many problems as possible, usually what that means is that I'm missing something. I'm trying to force a situation that's not meant to be, and the universe or the matrix or God or whoever is pulling the strings on this sick existence that we're all living in is trying to get me to notice something that I'm not noticing. So last night, sitting in bed, trying, just basically going through it with this estrogen thing, I suddenly had an epiphany. Before I give you the epiphany, it's worth mentioning that this mint cycle is not the first time that I've had this problem. If you search estrogen on my YouTube channel, you will see that I have been plagued by estrogen problems my entire bodybuilding career, as are most bodybuilders. It's something that we have to constantly adjust. Every time you add a compound, take a compound away. If you're running, like Primo that has AI activity. If you add too much Masteron, now you've got SERM activity. If you're taking EQ has AI activity. How much test are you taking? How much Arimidex, Aromacin, Letrozole? It's just a total disaster. And I don't remember exactly what was said, but suddenly I'm sitting in bed and I'm thinking about how miserable this entire thing has been. And I keep thinking about the fact that it seems like my estrogen has been crashed into the toilet for an extended period of time. And while talking through this, while going through this experience, I have been planning on we've been trying to find a way to source my wife's hormone replacement therapy. She takes estradiol depot, which is estradiol cypionate, to maintain her own physiological hormones. So this whole time I've been sitting here with crashed E2, there's been a bottle of estrogen in the other room that my wife uses. I have been considering making my own because it's so hard to get a hold of, and then suddenly I thought to myself, wait a minute, wait a goddamn minute. The problem that we all have is that we have no good way to take possession over the estrogen-making components in our bodies. So we have aromatase, and everybody seems to aromatize at different rates. I seem to aromatize hormones at a very high rate. Some guys claim that they don't, although what we're finding out, which has been proven, on my Discord, I'm still batting 1,000. I have yet to have a single guy who's been running gear for a while go get his estrogen checked and come back and have low or mid-grade E2. I had another guy come back who's been using roids for over 26 years, and he was like, damn dude, you were right. I got my E2 checked. His shit was 2 times the top end of the reference range, and he was totally asymptomatic. There is an absolute, I don't even want to say the P word, but it's rather demic, going on with high estrogen in men these days, and I think it's intentional. But rather than wasting time in this video with my conspiracy theories, this is what I have suddenly come up with as a possible way to set us all free from the estrogen nightmare that we are constantly battling. So currently, before I started taking mint, I was aromatizing at such a high rate that I was having to take 4.5 milligrams of Arimidex per week to keep my estrogen in the sweet spot. It is a documented fact that 1 milligram or 1 milligram per day, 7 milligrams per week of Arimidex is enough to knock your aromatase expression basically down to 0 or close to 0. So that gave me this crazy fucking idea. What if instead of constantly injecting all of these different male compounds, right, androgenic compounds, and then trying to adjust through blood work, through feel, through all of these things that we try to do, try to figure out, okay, how much Adex or how much aromacin do I need for 500 milligrams of test or a gram of test? Or what if I'm taking EQ and test? Is that enough to offset it, or do I need a little bit of an AI? Or what if I throw a Primo into the mix? We're constantly battling with this nightmare that is estrogen, this hormone that causes us all so many problems, because if it's too low, you don't function. If it's too high, you function very poorly, you look like shit, you feel like shit. It's really, really necessary that we're able to dial our estrogen into the absolute sweet spot. So my epiphany idea is, what if we do the same thing to our estrogen making properties of our bodies that we do to our testosterone making properties? So for example, every time we go on a cycle or a blast, we know that the fact that we're injecting exogenous testosterone is causing our bodies to stop producing natural T. That's why a lot of us take HCG, because we don't want our testicles to shrivel up. So we've already put ourselves into a state where we are completely dependent upon exogenous testosterone in order for us to have any physiological amount at all. And if we ever stop, then it's a crapshoot as to how long it will take for our bodies to start making it again, if it ever makes it again in sufficient quantities. So what if we do the same thing to our estrogen? I am considering running an experiment where I take 2.5 milligrams of letrozole per day to intentionally crash my estrogen all the way into the toilet so that it is absolutely non-existent. Now you guys are probably thinking, Mike, what the fuck are you talking about? You just spent a week and a half with estrogen crashing in the toilet telling us all the reasons that this is a miserable thing to do. But that's where the trick comes in. If we crash our estrogen levels totally into the toilet so that we have annihilated all of the aromatase enzyme in our bodies, then our bodies won't be able to make any or very little estrogen of their own. And then what we do is we inject estrogen. We inject a physiological amount of estrogen to replace what our bodies are no longer naturally making. We take control of the other half of the equation. So we have shut down the testosterone center in our body, and we are controlling exactly how much androgen we get. If we crush our aromatase expression into the toilet, then we will be free to re-administer very, very small amounts of estradiol. My calculations are 0.4 milligrams of estradiol twice a week. I think it was either 0.3 or 0.4. Should put me at about a 30 picogram per deciliter estradiol level, which is right just above, that's like just on the high side of normal. One of the other beautiful things about going about this way is that you can fine tune this. So you may find that you feel really good at 35 picograms, and another guy might like to be down here at 20 or 15 or whatever. You will be able to dial in your estrogen level with some margin of error very specifically because you're taking control of your own estrogen administration. The really, really exciting thing about this is it now opens you up to blast as much gear as your little heart can handle. If you want to blast 2 grams of test, no worries, because none of it is going to be able to aromatize because you've completely knocked out aromatase. So if you want to take test and EQ and Primo and Masteron, if you want to combine all 4 of these drugs that are all known to affect either the estrogen receptor or the aromatase expression enzyme, you will be able to do this basically totally free of charge. You will never have to screw around with blood work or estrogen levels or trying to figure out, trying to check your morning wood game. How am I feeling? Am I too bloated? You will be able to have total, complete control of your estrogen and your testosterone, which will free you up to do all of the crazy blast cycles that you want. if you're a competitive athlete, this is going to help you even more. Most competitive athletes that I'm aware of, when they get into the later weeks of prep, crash their estrogen anyway because they're trying to get as dry and lean and freaky as possible. So if you've already had your estrogen level crashed, when you're going into prep, you will be able to slowly lower the amount of estrogen you're taking. You might find out that you actually look slightly better on stage with a tiny physiological amount of estrogen that you can dial into perfection, something that is nearly impossible to do with aromatase inhibitors. We could unlock a whole new level of contest prep if we find out that maybe one of the things that will allow you to hit peak condition on stage is right before you go on stage, or whatever the time limit is, reintroduce a little bit of estrogen to the game and blow it up a little bit. I don't know. I'm not a competitive athlete. I'm just throwing this out there. But by going about the route that I'm talking about, the key factor is here that you will always be in total control of your hormones. That only leaves prolactin to deal with, and prolactin is much easier to combat than E2. We've got Caber on hand for that. Some people use P5P. It is generally far less problematic, and rest assured, if I can find a way to take control of prolactin, I will be the first to tell you about that too. I would love to be able to take control of every single hormone in my body and let my body do none of the work, because it is a horribly designed machine for our purposes. Our bodies are very efficient at creating homeostasis and making sure that nothing gets into super physiological territory. But we as bodybuilders are supra physiological beings. That's what we do. We push our bodies to the absolute maximum, and we're constantly fighting all of these built-in homeostasis mechanisms to try to achieve our bodybuilding goals. So it just seems logical and reasonable to me to stop playing this game. I'm very nearly taking enough Arimidex anyway to knock my estrogen out. Why not just finish the job? So I am strongly considering running this as a test experiment. Yet again, I will be your guinea pig. I'm considering taking anywhere between 2.5 and 5 milligrams of letrozole per day to knock my estrogen completely into the toilet, and then re-administer E2 in the form of probably estradiol valerate in 2 injections per week, or even if I have to go every single day, to get this nice flat curve of E2 somewhere in the 30 picogram per deciliter, I think is the way it's measured range, and see if I cannot dial in my D game to be exactly where I want it to be, to have my estrogen perfectly in line at all times, and then be able to add and subtract compounds, raise the doses, come off blast, go to TRT, go from TRT on to blast. No matter what you do on the androgen side, it will have zero effect on the estrogen side if you completely eradicate aromatase. Has anyone else ever done this? If so, please help us out in the comments section. If not, maybe I'm blazing another trail here. I think that the mint is acting like an aromatase inhibitor in my body anyways, because it seems definitively clear that my estrogen was crashed. Last night, it came back in full force. And so I will make a separate video about the fact that increasing all of my aromatizable compounds took me from a state of total broke D game to be back in action last night. But I will save that for a complete video. The purposes of this video is just to sell you on the idea that I think, not medical advice, hypothetical situation, that I think crashing your estrogen into the toilet via the aromatase expression pathway and then reintroducing estrogen exogenously could be a game changer for bodybuilders all over the world. Please let me know what you think in the comments section below, and as always, we'll see you on the next one.